Dr. Alan Morgan looked out the window of the spaceship Horizon *. For 15 years, he had visited many planets. All of them were deadly. No one could live on them without special equipment. The Galactic Council called these planets Deathworlds. Alan was tired. Every new planet was the same story. Too hot, too cold, too much acid, too much radiation. His job as lead scientist was simple. Go to a planet, confirm it was deadly, write a report, and leave. "Dr. Morgan, we have new orders," said Captain Diana Wells as she entered the room. She handed him a tablet. "We're going to investigate a star system called Sol. The third planet shows some unusual readings." Alan sighed. "Probably another false alarm. What's unusual about it?" "It has liquid water, oxygen atmosphere, and signs of complex life. The Council wants us to check it out." Lieutenant Olivia Pierce, the security chief, joined them. "Should I prepare the usual safety protocols?" she asked. "Yes," Alan replied. "We've seen planets with oxygen before. They usually have other problems: extreme weather, dangerous animals, or toxic plants." Ryan Fuller, the communications specialist, added, "I'll prepare our translation systems. If there's complex life, we might need them." The Horizon traveled for 3 weeks before reaching Sol 3, or Earth, as they would later learn to call it. As they entered orbit, the crew gathered in the observation room. What they saw shocked them. "That can't be right," Alan whispered. The planet below was blue and green and white. It had oceans, forests, deserts, and ice caps. It was more varied than any planet they had ever seen. "I'm detecting artificial structures," Ryan said, "and radio signals. Lots of them. Intelligent life. On a non-terraformed world." Captain Wells couldn't believe it. "That's impossible according to the Council's records." "We need to get closer," Alan decided. "Prepare a landing team." The Horizon landed in an open field outside a small settlement. Through their sensors, they could see buildings, roads, and moving vehicles. Most surprising were the living beings walking around without any protective gear. "They're breathing the raw atmosphere," Olivia said with surprise. "No filters, no suits." Alan checked his instruments. "The air has microbes in it. And look at the temperature range. This region seems to vary between freezing and very hot depending on the season. How can anything survive here?" They watched as a human approached their ship. He was an older man wearing simple clothes. He carried no weapons, just a tool of some kind. "Let's make contact," Captain Wells decided. "Ryan, keep recording everything." They opened the ship's door. Alan, Diana, Olivia, and Ryan stepped out wearing their protective suits. The human stopped and stared at them. "Hello there," the human said, surprisingly calm for someone meeting aliens. "I'm Frank Carter. This is my farm. Are you folks lost?" Ryan's translation device worked perfectly. The human spoke a simple language that was easy to understand. "We are researchers," Alan replied carefully. "We come from far away." Frank nodded. "Well, you picked a good spot to land. Didn't damage any of my crops. Would you like to come inside for some water? It's getting hot out here." The crew looked at each other in shock. This human was inviting them inside and offering them local water, water that contained microorganisms. "Thank you, but we cannot remove our protection," Diana explained. Frank looked confused. "Protection? From what?" "It's just a sunny day." Over the next few days, the crew met more humans. They spoke with Lisa Howard, the town mayor. They observed children playing in dirt. They saw humans eating plants and animals. They watched humans deliberately lying in the sun to darken their skin. "This changes everything," Alan told his crew one evening. "According to every principle we know, this planet should be a death world. These humans should not exist, but they do. The Council needs to know," Diana decided. "They won't believe our reports," Olivia pointed out. Alan nodded. "Then we'll need to bring some humans back with us. Living proof that not every planet is a death world after all. Captain Diana Wells sat in her private room on the asterisk horizon asterisk. She read her orders again. The message was clear. Observe only. Do not make official contact. Gather data and return to central space. But it was too late. They had already met Frank Carter and Lisa Howard. Now the town knew about them. Word was spreading. Diana had broken the rules, but how could she have known? No one expected to find intelligent life on a supposed death world. A knock came at her door. "Captain, the human representative is here," said Lieutenant Olivia. "Send him in," Diana replied. Greg Martinez walked into the room. He wore a simple suit and carried a small bag. He was from something called the United Nations and had been sent to talk with the aliens officially. "Thank you for meeting with me, Captain Wells," Greg said with a smile. "I hope we can learn from each other." Diana nodded. "Please understand, Mr. Martinez, I don't have permission to create official relations with your species. This meeting is unofficial." "I understand," Greg said. "But since you're here, perhaps we can share some basic information." Diana agreed. She showed Greg recordings of Council worlds. The videos showed planets with perfect weather, controlled temperatures, and carefully managed environments. Greg looked confused. They all looked the same. Where are the mountains? The oceans? The forests? "Those are considered dangerous," Diana explained. "Council species prefer safe, controlled environments." "That sounds boring," Greg said. "Humans like variety. We climb mountains because they're there. We swim in oceans because it's fun. We camp in forests to feel connected to nature." In another part of the ship, Medical Officer Paul Wright was examining samples from Earth. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. "These humans have bacteria living inside them," he told Ryan Fuller. "Not just on their skin, but in their digestive systems. And they need these bacteria to survive." Ryan was busy studying human languages. Their communication is fascinating. They have thousands of languages, and each one has different ways to express emotions. They use tone, facial expressions, and special words to show how they feel. Later, Engineer Jack Kelly visited the ship's engine room with Sam Rodriguez, the Asterisk Horizon's asterisk engineer. Jack looked at the propulsion system with interest. "This is interesting," Jack said, "but not very efficient. Have you tried reconfiguring the plasma flow like this?" He drew a design on a tablet. Sam looked at the drawing with surprise. "That might actually work better than our current design." "How did you think of that?" Jack shrugged. "Just seems logical. On Earth, we've had to be creative with our energy sources." That evening, the crew met to discuss what they had learned. "These humans are amazing," Alan said. "They've adapted to live in conditions that would kill most Council species. They drink water with microbes in it. They eat plants and animals. They have internal bacteria that help them digest food. And they're smart," Sam added. "That engineer Kelly suggested improvements to our engines that make sense." Diana looked worried. "The Council won't like this. Humans break all our rules about what's possible. They live on a planet we would call a death world, yet they thrive there." "What will we do?" asked Olivia. Diana thought for a moment. "We need to report our findings. The Council needs to know about humans." Diana sent a message to her superiors. The response came quickly. "Bring human representatives to central space. Council must examine this anomaly directly." The next day, Diana met with Greg Martinez again. "My superiors have authorized me to invite a small group of humans to visit central space. You would be the first humans to travel beyond your solar system." Greg's eyes widened. "That's a big step. Who would you want to bring?" "We need different types of experts," Diana explained. "A scientist, an engineer, a diplomat like yourself, someone who understands plants, and perhaps a military advisor to answer security questions." Greg nodded. "I'll speak with our leaders. I think we can arrange this." As Greg left the ship, Alan joined Diana at the window. "Do you think the Council will accept humans?" he asked. Diana watched Greg walking back toward town. "I don't know. Humans are unlike anything in our records. They might be seen as an opportunity, or as a threat." 5 humans stood at the entrance of the spaceship Horizon. They had been chosen to represent Earth to the Galactic Council. Dr. Natalie Brooks was a scientist who studied how living things adapt to their environments. Jack Kelly was an engineer who designed systems for space travel. Greg Martinez was a diplomat who knew how to talk to different groups. Eliza Ward was a botanist who knew about plants and how they grew. Colonel Keith Bennett was a military advisor who could explain human defense systems. "Are we really going to travel faster than light?" asked Natalie, looking excited. "That's what they told us," said Jack. "I can't wait to see how their engines work." Captain Diana Wells greeted them at the door. "Welcome aboard. The journey to central space will take about 2 weeks. We've prepared rooms for each of you." The humans followed her inside. They had brought small bags with personal items. Earth's leaders had told them to learn everything they could about alien technology and culture. The first few days were hard for the humans. The air on the ship felt thin to them. The artificial gravity made them feel slightly dizzy. The food was bland. Nutrition packets that had no taste. "How can you eat this every day?" Eliza asked Sam Rodriguez as they sat in the dining area. Sam looked surprised. "It has all the nutrients we need. What more would you want?" "Flavor," Eliza said. "Texture. Joy. Food should make you happy, not just keep you alive." Meanwhile, Dr. Alan Morgan was amazed by the humans. Natalie could work for many hours without rest periods. Keith exercised every day in ways that would tire most council species. Eliza missed the helpful bacteria from Earth but stayed healthy anyway. Medical Officer Paul Wright was shocked when Jack Kelly took out a bottle of brown liquid one evening. "What is that?" Paul asked. "Beer," Jack said. "It's a drink we make by fermenting plants. Want to try some?" Paul scanned the liquid. "It contains ethanol. That's poison." Jack laughed. "Only in large amounts. In small amounts, it helps us relax and be social. Having a beer together is a human tradition." Hall couldn't believe humans would drink poison on purpose, but he was learning that humans did many strange things. As they got closer to central space, Ryan Fuller picked up troubling messages. He showed them to Captain Diana. "Some council members are calling humans hazardous organisms," Ryan explained. "They're afraid of what humans might bring to their worlds." Diana frowned. "We need to be careful. The Council doesn't like new things, especially things that challenge their beliefs." She called the humans together to explain. "The Council has strict rules about what they consider safe. You come from a world they would call dangerous. They might see you as dangerous too." "But we're not dangerous," said Eliza. "We just adapted to our planet." "That's exactly what worries them," Alan joined in. "You adapted to conditions that would kill most Council species. That makes you very different." "Different doesn't mean bad," said Greg. "We know that," Diana said. "But we need to convince the Council." They made a plan. Natalie would explain human biology. Jack would show how humans could help with technology. Eliza would talk about Earth plants and how they might help other worlds. Greg would handle the diplomatic talks. Keith would be careful to show that humans were not aggressive unless threatened. "Remember," Alan told them, "the Council has believed for thousands of years that planets like Earth cannot support intelligent life. You are living proof that they're wrong. That will be hard for them to accept." The Horizon approached a huge space station. It was shaped like a wheel with spokes going to a center hub. Hundreds of ships moved around it. "That's central space," Diana said, "the heart of the Galactic Council." The humans stared in wonder. Soon, they would meet aliens from many worlds. Soon, they would need to convince those aliens that humans were not a threat but potential friends. "No pressure," Keith joked. "We're just changing how the entire galaxy thinks about life." The Horizon docked at the station. The journey to prove humans' place in the galaxy was about to begin. The humans walked into the Grand Hall of the Galactic Council. It was a huge room with tall ceilings. Hundreds of aliens sat in curved rows that went up high. The aliens looked very different from each other. Some had scales, some had fur, some had many eyes, and some had no eyes at all. Security guards watched the humans closely. Medical teams stood ready with equipment. Clear shields separated the human area from the rest of the hall. "They're treating us like we have a disease," whispered Keith to Greg. "They're scared of us," Greg replied quietly. "Remember the plan. Stay calm and friendly." A tall blue alien stood up. He had 4 arms and skin that sparkled like gems. "I am High Counselor Zorax of the Vrel Confederation," he said. His voice was deep and echoed in the hall. "We welcome the representatives from Sol 3, also called Earth." Zorax looked at the humans with his 3 large eyes. "These creatures come from a planet with extreme heat and cold, poisonous air components and harmful sun rays. By our rules, this makes them very dangerous." The aliens in the hall started talking loudly. Some moved away from the human area. Others leaned forward with interest. Dr. Natalie Brooks stepped up to speak. She showed pictures of Earth on the big screens in the hall. She showed deserts, oceans, mountains, and forests. "Humans have adapted to live in many different places," she explained. "We don't just survive in hard environments. We change them to be better." She showed how humans had turned dry land into farms, built cities in harsh places, and found ways to live in very cold and very hot areas. Another alien stood up. She was small with purple skin and long, thin fingers. "I am Counselor Morella of the Threnax Alliance," she said. "If what you say is true, humans could live on planets we thought no one could live on. This changes everything about how we explore space." The debate grew more intense when Jack Kelly showed designs for growing food on planets the Council thought were useless. Eliza Ward showed Earth plants that could change bad air into good air much faster than the Council's methods. Colonel Bennett faced the hardest questions. A large red alien with armor-like skin asked, "A species that evolved to survive constant dangers must be aggressive. Are humans dangerous fighters?" "We used to fight more," Bennett said carefully. "Now we try to solve problems peacefully. But yes, we will protect ourselves and those we care about if we must." This made many aliens whisper to each other nervously. After hours of questions, the Council asked the humans to leave so they could talk privately. The humans waited in a small room nearby. "That went as well as we could hope," said Greg. "Some seemed interested in what we can offer. Others seemed afraid of us," said Natalie. "Did you see how they reacted when Keith said we would defend ourselves?" Outside the waiting room, Captain Diana Wells and Dr. Alan Morgan talked quietly. "The Council has a hard choice," Alan said. "For thousands of years, they've believed that only carefully controlled planets can support intelligent life. Humans prove that's wrong." Diana nodded. "If they accept humans, they have to change how they think about everything. Their whole system of exploring and settling planets is based on the idea that Deathworlds can't produce intelligent life." "And if they reject humans?" Alan asked. "Then they lose what we could offer them," Diana said. "Our ability to live in harsh places could open up hundreds of new worlds for the galaxy." The door opened. A Council messenger entered. "The Council has reached a decision," the messenger said. "They request all of you return to the Grand Hall." The humans looked at each other. This was the moment that would decide if Earth would join the galactic community or be left alone. "Whatever happens," Greg said to his fellow humans, "remember that we represent all of humanity today." They walked back to the Grand Hall, ready to hear the Council's decision. The humans stood in the center of the Grand Hall again. All the Council members watched them in silence. High Counselor Zorax raised his 4 arms for quiet. "We have reached an agreement," Zorax said. "Humans present a unique case. We need more information before we can fully welcome Earth into the galactic community." Counselor Morella stepped forward. "We propose a test. Humans will join a team of council scientists on an expedition to planet Proxima 6. This planet is what we call a Class 5 Deathworld. We believe only simple bacteria can live there. The humans looked at each other. Greg spoke first. What would this expedition involve? You will explore the planet, Zorax explained. Show us how humans adapt to such environments. Prove that your abilities can be useful to the galaxy. We accept, Greg said after a quick talk with the other humans. The council seemed surprised by their quick answer. The expedition will leave in 3 days, Zorax said. You may request additional human specialists to join you. Back on the Horizon the humans called Earth to explain the situation. Earth's leaders agreed to send more experts to help. A small ship would bring them to central space the next day. We need people with special skills, Natalie told Alan Morgan. People who know how to survive in very harsh places. The next day, 4 more humans arrived. Amber Collins was a geologist who studied rock formations. Nick Peterson was a meteorologist who predicted weather patterns. Dr. Scott Wayne was a medical researcher who studied how bodies fought disease. Vanessa Taylor was an expert on changing planets to make them more livable. The council appointed Jackson Vrill to lead their side of the expedition. He was tall with gray skin and 6 fingers on each hand. He seemed less afraid of humans than the other aliens, but he still watched them carefully. Proxima 6 has a thin atmosphere with too much carbon dioxide, Jackson explained during a planning meeting. The temperature changes from very hot in the day to very cold at night. Acid rain falls often. The ground has high levels of heavy metals. Sounds like parts of Earth after our Industrial Revolution, said Amber. Not pleasant, but not impossible. The expedition ship landed on Proxima 6 3 days later. The council team immediately set up a protected dome with air filters and temperature controls. They wore full body protection suits when they went outside. The humans tested the air and soil. They put on breathing masks and protective clothing, but not full suits like the aliens wore. You cannot go out like that, Jackson said, shocked. The acid in the air will burn your skin. The metals in the soil will poison you. We've taken samples, Scott explained. The acid levels are high but not immediately deadly. Our clothes will protect us for short periods. We'll limit our exposure. The humans explored farther than the council scientists dared to go. Amber found useful minerals in the rocks. Nick predicted when the acid storms would come by watching cloud patterns. Scott discovered tiny organisms that lived in hot springs, similar to ones on Earth. The biggest test came on the 5th day. A strong acid storm hit without warning. The council's protective dome started to fail. Its outer shell began to melt. Everyone inside was in danger. Without hesitation, Vanessa and Keith ran out into the storm. They wore extra protective gear, but the acid rain still burned their skin. They worked quickly to fix the dome's power system. We need to bypass the main circuit, Vanessa shouted over the storm. Keith helped her connect emergency power cables. Their hands burned from the acid, but they kept working. They fixed the dome just before it collapsed. When they returned inside, the council scientists stared at them in shock. You risked your lives, Jackson said, looking at their burned hands and faces. That's what humans do, Keith said simply. We help each other. That night, Jackson sent a private message to the council. The humans didn't see what he wrote, but he seemed different the next day. He asked more questions. He listened more carefully to their ideas. He even tried some of their survival methods. By the end of the 2-week expedition, Jackson had written his final report. The humans hoped it would be enough to change the council's mind about them and their Deathworld home. 3 months after the Proxima 6 expedition, the humans were called back to central space. They had returned to Earth and shared what they learned about the galaxy. Earth's leaders had prepared plans for working with the council, if allowed. When the humans arrived at central space, they found it in crisis. A disease called the Mycarian plague had hit the colony world of New Helios. Over 50,000 people lived there. and they were all sick. The council had placed the entire colony under quarantine. No ships could land or leave. "The plague adapts to all our medicines," explained Counselor Morella. "Our doctors cannot stop it." "Why can't your doctors study it directly?" asked Dr. Scott Wayne. Jackson Frill, who had become friendlier to humans after the expedition, answered, "Our species have lived in clean, controlled environments for so long that our immune systems are weak. Any doctor who studies the plague directly would get sick and die." Scott looked at his fellow humans. "Our immune systems evolved fighting thousands of diseases on Earth. We might be able to help." High Counselor Zorax looked doubtful. "You would risk your lives to help aliens you barely know." "That's what doctors do," Scott said simply. After some discussion, the council agreed to let a human medical team go to New Helios, but they gave a stern warning. If the human showed signs of infection, the entire colony would be destroyed from space. That was the standard way the council dealt with dangerous diseases. Scott led a team of human medical experts to New Helios. Dr. Julia Winters was a virus expert. Ben Harper studied immune systems. Sophia Garcia tracked how diseases spread. Andy Mitchell was a field medic who treated people in disaster areas. When they reached New Helios, they found a terrible situation. The colony's medical systems had been designed for perfect cleanliness. When the plague hit, those systems couldn't adapt. Julia took samples of the plague and studied them. "This reminds me of certain viruses on Earth," she said. Ben tested human blood against the plague. "Our blood shows natural resistance," he reported. "Not immunity, but our bodies fight it better." Sophia tracked how the plague moved through the colony. "It keeps changing to avoid the medicines," she noted. Andy noticed something interesting while treating patients. "The colonists who grow earth plants in their homes get sick later than others," he told the team. They spoke with a local gardener named Kyle Reeves. "I brought soil from Earth for my plants," Kyle explained. "It's against the rules, but Earth plants don't grow well in the sterile local soil." Scott took samples of Kyle's soil. He found bacteria that seemed to fight the plague. "Earth soil has millions of microbes," Scott explained to the colony doctors. "Some of them make compounds that can kill harmful organisms." Within weeks, the human team made a treatment from these compounds. They began giving it to the sickest patients. Slowly, people started to recover. The human team did more than just treat the plague. They changed how the colony's health systems worked. They introduced helpful bacteria into the air and water cleaning systems. They added certain earth plants to living areas. They created vaccines using weakened plague samples. "This goes against all our medical rules," said the colony's head doctor. "We always try to remove all microbes." "That's your problem," Julia explained. "When everything is too clean, people's bodies don't learn to fight disease. On Earth, we learned that some dirt is good for health." After 2 months, the plague was under control. The council lifted the quarantine. The colony was safe. When the human team returned to Central Space, High Counselor Zorax sent a message to Earth's leaders. "Your people have shown great courage and wisdom. Perhaps we have been too narrow in our thinking. Your Deathworld has taught your species valuable lessons that we have forgotten." The council voted to create a new medical research center where humans and council doctors would work together. They would study Earth's approach to disease and immunity. They would learn from each other. Scott Wayne became the first human to lead a council medical project. His first task was to review all planets classified as Deathworlds. Many might hold organisms that could help fight disease across the galaxy. 5 years passed since humans first met the Galactic Council. Many things had changed. Today, leaders from Earth and the Council were meeting on Earth. The first time a council summit had been held on what they once called a Deathworld. The meeting took place in a large room with windows that looked out over mountains and a lake. Many aliens sat at tables with humans. Some aliens still wore light protection suits, but others had started to adapt to Earth's environment. High Counselor Zorax stood to speak. 5 years ago, we believed planets like Earth could not support intelligent life. We were wrong. Today we signed the Galactic Exploration and Colonization Treaty. This new agreement will change how we explore space. The treaty was simple. Council races would share their advanced technology and scientific knowledge. Humans would lead expeditions to worlds previously thought uninhabitable. Together, they would expand the galaxy's living space. The first teams of humans and aliens had already returned from exploring new worlds. Their results were better than anyone expected. Amber Collins, the geologist, had led a team to Rigel 9, a planet with heavy gravity and harsh air. There she found special mineral formations that could make Council manufacturing much better. These minerals were common on worlds the Council had ignored for centuries. Eliza Ward had planted modified Earth trees on Ta City 3, a world with a poisonous atmosphere. In less than a year, those trees began changing the air to make it breathable. The Council's old methods would have taken hundreds of years to do the same thing. The most important changes have been in how we think, said Councillor Morella. For thousands of years, we believed safety came from perfect control of our environments. Now we are learning that some challenges make us stronger. Council species had begun careful experiments with less controlled environments. They found that limited exposure to different conditions improved their health rather than harmed it. Human doctors introduced the ideas of good stress and helpful microbes to Council medical science. Our children now play in soil gardens, said a Council parent. They get fewer allergies and sicknesses than children raised in sterile rooms. After the treaty signing, Admiral Diana Wells, formerly Captain Wells of the Horizon Asterisk, met with Dr. Alan Morgan. Diana now led the first mixed fleet of human and alien exploration ships. Alan had just returned from finding new possible colony worlds in a distant star cluster. When we found Earth, we thought it was impossible, Diana said as they watched humans and aliens talking together. Instead, we discovered that life finds a way, even in places we thought were too harsh. Alan replied. And now the galaxy is opening up faster than anyone imagined. The human-alien partnership had already found over 50 planets that could support colonies with minimal changes. Hundreds more could be made livable with Earth plants and animals. The galaxy suddenly seemed much less empty and much more welcoming. Greg Martinez joined them, carrying drinks. He now led the Earth diplomatic team. 5 years ago, the Council was afraid of us, he said. Now they're asking for our help to make their own worlds more natural. Humans are still strange to them, Alan said with a smile. Yesterday I saw a Council scientist jump when it started raining during an outdoor meeting. They'll learn, Diana said, just as we're learning from them. Their technology is amazing. With their star drives and our adaptability, there's no limit to where we can go. As the meeting ended, Zorax raised a glass in a human-style toast. He had practiced the gesture carefully. To our new understanding, he said. We once believed every planet except our carefully controlled worlds was a death world. Humans proved otherwise. They showed us that with the right perspective and adaptations, no world is beyond reach. The galaxy is more alive than we ever knew. Everyone raised their glasses, human and alien. They looked out at Earth's landscape, the mountains, forests, and open sky that had once seemed so dangerous to Council thinking. Now they saw it differently. They saw possibility. And beyond Earth, countless worlds waited for their touch. Worlds that were not death worlds after all, just homes waiting to be discovered.